Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another TV show review, and we're covering the second final season of Iron Man Armored Adventures. I'm clearing out a lot of Iron Man stuff in the coming weeks. Last week I already took care of season 1 review of Armored Adventures, the first Iron Man movie, as well as Iron Man Demon in a Bottle comic book event. You can check that out on the channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. And give this video a like if you're curious about the others. Check it out, share it, hit the notification bell. They'll greatly help me out. Anywho, yeah, season 2, the final season, which didn't seem like it was only 2 seasons. You know, when you watch certain shows as a kid, you feel like they're like was on like freaking forever, but it's just a lot of episodes in like a particular season. You just did not know. But this series as a whole is phenomenal. I dare I say it's like, should be up there with the greats like Batman, the animated series, and Spectacular Spider-Man, and 90s Spider-Man, and the 90s X-Men show. Fantastic. I also want to include like the mid-2000s, early to mid-2000s season 1 of Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes, which I also did a TV show review on, which is up on the channel as well. One of my first TV show reviews. So definitely give that a look, because if you want a good Fantastic Four, look at that show. It's on Disney Plus. Phenomenal. Love like the art and like the story. It's top notch. But yeah, we begin, like after the events of season 1, the culmination of like Gene Khan, aka the Mandarin, is revealed, as well as him knowing that Tony is Iron Man. But Tony only sees the fact that, oh, you lied to me, you pretended to be our friend just to get to the rings, even though, in all fairness, you wasn't like, even though you was planning on to it, you did keep your secret from him. So it's like kind of, pot meets kettle. But Gene, for the bulk of this show, has still been collecting the other 5 rings with Howard Stark in tow. All the while, there's only like a few months before Tony's 18th birthday. All the while, now we're not only dealing with Stain and finagling a way to, stop him from using Stark Industries to make weapons, because he created the Ironmonger. This is like obviously the Ironmonger, unlike in the first Iron Man movie, which is, in general supposed to be bigger than the Iron Man suit anyway. But this thing is freaking gigantuan. It's like probably half the size of Godzilla. It probably goes up to like maybe like Godzilla's kneecap or something. I won't say half the size of Godzilla. It was probably like, so big, probably nearly is at Godzilla's kneecap. Is that big. And Rhodey and Pepper, they're still kind of annoying. They're essential. They're kind of annoying. But I did not realize this, but that goth chick in class with her brother, or seemingly brother, turns out to be like supposed to be this version of the Thinker, who's like also a tinkerer for making weapons and tech for supervillains. And her brother, or seemingly brother, turns out to be like, based off of this, I think, Fantastic Four bad guy, or at least, always in tandem with the Thinker, like, because there's a he in the comics. The Thinker's kind of like bodyguard. Is Andy in the show, but in the comics is awesome android. But yeah, I like that episode when it's like, all right, this girl is clearly fucking nuts at this point. See, making these, she turned the school into a giant death trap for Tony and his close friends, including like Whitney Stang, which once again is like in the shows they kind of combine a lot of characters and they combine Whitney uh, between like Madame Mask and Ezekiel Stain because Obadiah Stane has a son, not a daughter. His name is Ezekiel, but they kind of turned Madame Mask into the daughter. And clearly, for the bulk of the show, except for one episode when things kind of take a culmination of, or things are reaching this apex with her. The bulk of the show, she is almost non-existent. Obviously, she's still festering after those situation with Obadiah. Well, no, it's two things. Uh, Obadiah is pretty much like loses his mind at a certain point. I'm getting ahead of myself, but back to Andy and Rona. These goth people, turn this school into like a freaking death trap. Like she's like the freaking Riddler, and Tony is like trying to figure out like these puzzles and clues, was like awesome. And it's like even challenging Tony on stuff that he's not have any kind of uh, familiarity with, because that's not his expertise. Like philosophy, music. He struggled with the philosophy stuff, but like he pushed through it and figured out the answer. But also with the music, he gets Happy. Happy gets a shine in this. This is like probably my favorite moment of Happy out of this entire show. Happy because his mom is like a musical expert, like I think classical, like a pianist or something like that. So, because by osmosis he knows his music, specifically classical, and Happy, after every like including Whitney's like like not believing it, like, oh my god, Happy, you gonna rely on Happy? Oh, we're doomed. And it's like I felt like Happy, obviously, is not it's kind of what does he's just not like hearing that stuff. But if it was me, I'd be kind of like, that's fucked up. I mean, granted, he's not like the smartest guy here, even though this is like a very smart school, and he's just like the seemingly dumb jock. He does know stuff. And, he's not just here for like a sports scholarship kind of thing. Even though, like, you go into school, it's pretty much like a magnet school or something like that, and it's like you got all these smart kids and you're trying to figure out advanced stuff here, and it's pretty much, it's weird. It's like, okay, this is, even though you got some kind of like sports stuff, you treat it like a regular high school, but you keep making references that it's very advanced, and an advanced school like this probably wouldn't need any kind of like sports team. But irregardless, he managed to like pull the win because, like, hey, I'm not a super genius myself, but I do know stuff, and it's like you hate to hear from people, even though you should block that kind of stuff out. You will hate to hear from people like, oh my god, like we're gonna rely on him, we're doomed. I heard that stuff plenty of times, in like in middle school and some points in high school, and every now and again I prove them wrong. But it's just like, you don't want to hear that kind of stuff. No one wants to hear that kind of stuff. You feel like you're being doubted on, especially people you think, Whitney is not that close with any of them like that, at least not anymore. You would not want to hear that kind of stuff from people you think are your friends, or especially like relatives or something like that. I heard that from a couple of relatives, when I was younger too, that kind of thing. But turns out after they stopped Rona and found out Annie was just like an android this whole time, or just a robot, I should say. It turns out she is an escapee from the Ravencroft Institute, which is pretty much Marvel's version of Arkham Asylum, and uh, this seemingly doctor turns out to be like one of Rona's other robots, takes her away, only to be, you think like, you'll see her again, blah blah blah. Uh, while speaking on the subject of this woman, the show has a few issues that I wanted to bring up that's kind of glaring once I really took a. I think I spotted it even when I first watched this years ago. It's just like the repeating of certain characters. There's one episode dealing with like, mutants and stuff like that, where it's just like this bully kid that after which of that mutant episode, you see pop up on the street here and there, wearing the exact same clothes, and in that same shot as other passerbys from the main characters goes by them, you see Rona in that little goth outfit walking by, and it's the same hairstyle. And matter of fact, it's like recycled, kind of like NPC characters, like recycled characters, but with different hair colors or skin tones. And it's like, I mean, I think it's par for a course for certain shows to have like background characters, but at least make them generic in some fashion, and not just the fact that you recycle them is kind of hard to not see uh, characters like that popping up in the background, and it's like, okay, part of me feel like you're too lazy just to make just like a random generic character, or at least not using the same character model that you had in like a previous episode that was, prominent. I thought that was like personally, I thought that was like kind of lazy. But Tony also got to deal with, with the ghosts, who little by little people are like figuring out, like, people seemingly close allies, and certain villains are getting wise to Tony Stark being Iron Man. But first it was the Ghost, the first villain to know who Tony Stark is Iron Man, and that is like hovering over Tony's head, because once I get a hold of the company, he's going to try to like rat me out and blackmail me, and I got to deal with that. I got to make that tomorrow's problem, because I got to deal with just getting the company back, because that's an immediate problem. And you deal like Obadiah dealing with the board, and they're losing confidence in him, and he's like damn near endangering the life of because in Jersey there's this abandoned little neighborhood that this old man. It's always that kind of story. This old man wouldn't move or leave from this property because it's where, like, it's special to him, either when it comes like a wife or a kid, or in this case, this is where he keeps his lively work, and like I get it to some extent, but it's like you treating it that goddamn seriously to the point where you're willing to die in it. It's like, what the hell? It's like it kind of bugs me in a way. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people, like as they mentioned, got paid to move and stuff like that. But this guy, hidden away so he can like rather die with his stuff rather than like give it up. But of course he gets stuff back, and thanks to Rhodey's mom, who's a lawyer, which is a convenient to have like a lawyer on hand, because they make references to other Marvel characters like Matt Murdock, but they couldn't like bring in Matt Murdock, so they have like the convenience of Rhodey's mom to fill in those kind of legal roles. So it's like, this old man agreed not to sue you for endangering his life. It's purposely his fault for not leaving, knowing full well because technically, Obadiah did have probably like a legal right to start using his ironmonger in this place that's supposed to be demolized and brought down. And just because he tucked away and didn't accept the money, it's like, oh, but I could just, got like, the cops to haul his ass away or something like that. But kind of technically, Obadiah did have the right to like knock all that place down. He just refused to leave. And it's like, but then again, Obadiah once realized there's people there, he still continued. But it's just like, Obadiah is not necessarily in the wrong on this because this old man just decided to just hunker down and rather die for his stuff. Uh, but he get to keep his like little lab and everything like that in Jersey, whatever. It was kind of like a moment. It's just like a moment you actually see like the first appearance of Ironmonger in action with what it can do. But like, you also get the your appearance of Justin Hammer as an added villain. It's like kind of like a what's his name from Game of Thrones? That sadistic teenager. I forgot his doggone name. But you know what I'm talking about. Greyjoy, I think. But yeah, Justin Hammer almost acts like that. He gets, as the season gets towards the end, he more increasingly more like insane as he's like trying to establish power by acquiring Stark International or Industries, and he creates the Titanium Man, which he secretly pilots, and he has this assistant named Sasha, which is kind of like Lex Luthor's Mercy, where she's unlike Mercy, who's a capable fighter and a little bit more of a trusted confidant. Uh, this woman is obviously not like that skilled, but she's kind of like got selfish intentions and kind of got a sadistic side when she kind of remotely controlled the Ironmonger was staying still inside trying to wreak havoc, and she's just like enjoying the idea of like crushing this guy's own daughter. And it's like, oh, collateral damage. I was like, what the fuck? Uh, uh, then Hammer really like showed his sadistic side by seemingly killing the Tinkerer, Mr. Fix, but he just uploaded his subconscious in his computer, which I think is kind of dangerous. I don't even know if you got any safeguards in case this guy, who's well known with computers and tech, why wouldn't you not think he would sabotage any of your stuff? Because as you can see, Justin Hammer is not that good when it comes to tech. To be conscientious about safeguards, which does bite on my ass by towards the end of the season when this ignorant fool, because you get kind of like a little shout out to Marvel Zombies a bit. This fool actually created a zombie virus, thinking he can use it to as a gas bomb to throw in a particular area, like a rival company, and make it a ground zero, so that way you can take out rivals. How do you expect to contain all that? And it's like that is easily spread. And that's the only time when you see Sasha actually showing any kind of conscience, and it's like, because she's like, "Are you out of your mind? You making a freaking zombie virus?" Because he tested it, he used it on Killer Strike, another goon of his, and then but before that, Count Nefaria, who was the leader of AIM, or no, Magia, uh, and it's like this dude's out of his goddamn mind at this point. And of course, all the while, like you got like, you know, uh, Pepper constantly hounding Tony. Oh, like, we make me a new armor. Make me a new armor. Oh, it's gonna be so good with armor. And then like, relax. It's like no, you like every episode you bring it up. But of course, he does eventually make her the rescue armor, which unlike in the comics, which is like silver and red, here is purple and silver. Uh, and she's like even more annoying now in the armor. Uh, what else? You get an introduction of Black Widow and Hawkeye in this, which, by the way, they made a little like subtle nods and references to other Marvel characters, even DC characters. Like when Iron Man first meets Hawkeye, like what do they call you, Purple Man, or Purple Arrow, I should say. Like obviously like a reference to Green Arrow from DC Comics, but they also make a reference to like Moon Knight, Reed Richards, Hank Pym, Matt Murdock, Spider-Man quite a few times here. Even like making like a reference to with great power comes great responsibility, and you also get like a sort of kind of sort of thing with Captain America, where eventually uh, she'll eventually pull him out of the ice, but they're still trying to figure out how to safely thaw him out. But he's technically here. Uh, Yet reintroduced to Black Panther here. He comes back. Oh, they also referenced to Dum Dum Dugan and Phil Coulson as like a faceless shield agents with their like helmets on, so you don't see their faces, but it's like a name shout out. Punisher was shouted out a couple of times. Uh, the Fantastic Four was making a little shout out here and there as well. But uh, Black Panther making a return, which is an awesome episode. But if you know Nakia from the MCU, which is supposed to be like Black Panther's love interest, here, mind you, this is years before Black Panther was considered. This is like around the time the first Avengers movie was like coming out. Nakia is like apparently like a love interest to the guy Black Panther was tracking down in the previous season, and she was like a bad guy in this, trying to get revenge on for exiling her her love interest. Which is kind of like a shocking knowing like Nakia now, and it's like wow, it's like it was kind of wild looking at her here as like a bad guy. Uh, uh, what else happened? Like, yeah, it's like I said, Whitney is like losing her marbles. More the more she's wearing that freaking mask, and decides to because after a certain point when like after because thanks to the help of Rhodey's mom, they pulled like a security video. Don't know why they never did this earlier when this happened in the previous season. They gathered some video of Obadiah Stane working with Ghost to who's a well-known criminal to uh, do nefarious schemes and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, all right, they pretty much the board just pretty much like you're fired, Stane, you're out. And like okay, now at this point he's thinking like, oh, it's guaranteed now that there's gonna be an open spot for Tony to be the head of the company. But now this sends like Obadiah over the edge. He it seemingly goes on a rampage because he figured out that thanks to a not so smart thing for Tony to do, which is repeat a similar line he says as Iron Man, which clues in on Obadiah to figuring out that he's Iron Man. Now he goes to steal the Iron Monger suit and try to exact revenge on Tony, which Cause once the tussle happens and like Titanium Man trying to like pretend to be a hero by taking down Ironmonger, but all that plan fell through when Tony stopped both Iron Man and Titanium Man. Which, side note, did not realize, or maybe like I realized once I first saw this, but I forgot until I rewatched this, that when titanium is like super heated, it keeps burning until there's nothing left. As it's very hard to put out, because of the nature of the metal from titanium, and exposed to heat. This whole chemical basis, like I thought, wow, did not know that. You learned something here. Um, but they stopped Ironmonger's rampage, but it's resulted in Obadiah going into a coma, Whitney, losing her and going through grief, which eventually culminates into her like pretending to be Obadiah and set up all these traps and sending these drones to come attack Rhodey, Whitney, and Tony. Was they eventually stop? She gets busted by Shield, uh, and she eventually knows that Tony is Iron Man as well. Thinking she can blackmail him by telling Shield his identity, but they already know, so that was fruitless. But yeah, what else happened? Oh yeah, all the while like when you see Doctor Doom a couple of times here. Doctor Doom is like a total badass and a serious threat. You forget how a serious threat Doctor Doom is sometimes, and like he does control magic and tech, but it's like uh uh in here, Tony concludes like, oh, he's just manipulating some particles to make it seem like it's magic, but it's still science and blah blah blah. I hate them when certain shows or comics or whatever do that. It's like there's a distinction with science, which is like a physical, tangible thing, and then there's magic, there's an intangible thing, and both coexist in like comics. So like I hate it when they're trying to rationalize magic and it's not supposed to be rationalized. Magic just, yeah, it might be bullshit, way of making things happen that might not like, but it is. There's a reason for it to exist. Uh, and by the way, like Tony got a slicker, more uh, uh, armor this time compared to the one that got blown up by the end of the last season. And thanks to Shield's intervention, the first time they tussled with Doctor Doom, which was he was putting them on the ropes. But the second time they dealt with Doctor Doom, they have to work with Mandarin, which Tony is like obviously peed about because he's lying and like him trying to use the rings to take over. But he come looking for Tony's help because Doctor Doom got the ninth ring. You get a mention about like the gargoyle, Great Gargoyle, which is supposed to be like a guardian of this ninth ring, but you don't see him in action. But in the comics, he's actually a man with the power to turn people into stone upon touch. Doctor Doom easily bested him, obviously, but then uh, 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 Doctor Doom, because he's like way smarter than and capable than Jean is by far, he had no choice to run away, but he's obviously Doom is holding Howard hostage. So, but like Jean goes to Tony's help, to retrieve not only the ninth ring, because he can't do it alone. He got like this issue with like uh, with them trying to, well, Tony trying to trust him, but it's like, okay, I'm going to give you one ring, the teleporter ring, just in order to get us inside Doom's castle. But I'm holding on to these other rings, the other 7 rings. Uh, uh, while going through all these death traps, Gene keeps constantly like, "Give me the other rings, otherwise we'll be like whatever." Like, it's like, he's not gonna give you the other rings. I don't know why you keep asking. Uh, but uh, Doom utilizing the ninth ring to open up these dark portals to where people assume like a negative zone, but it's dark dimension kind of thing with this gigantic fucking centipede thing, who's like a ruler there, I guess. I don't know. And promised Doom the return of his family, but usually is about his mother. Doom for the longest time until like his team up with Doctor Strange. Around the mid 2000s, this little short event where helped release Doom's mother's soul from hell. Uh, but that was always his like goal in order to like find a way to release that soul. But in this, it's like my family, like I release my family intact and whatever by offering these 3 pure souls. But Doom doesn't even consider or care that Jean's soul probably not pure, unlike Howard and Tony's, which the demon actually like make a point. It's like, oh, you lied to me, so I'm not honoring my deal since you didn't apparently honor yours. So uh, uh, eventually Tony and the other two managed to make their escape out of that dimension. Uh, Thanks to because Howard encouraged him, like, look, there's only other way to get out of here by giving Jean these other rings, even though Howard playing on like he doesn't know that his son is Iron Man, but he played along for a few episodes. But it's like, okay, uh, which is weird because he chastises Tony about like being late for a few. After he comes back and makes a return from return, he chastises his son about being late for a few 30 minutes late for a few meetings. And like, obviously, you probably hinted of knowing that your son might be Iron Man, so you're not cutting him any slack about it. So that's weird. But anyway, they make their escape out of this dark dimension, and they stop Doom, but they lose the ninth ring to Jean, and he escapes. But at least, Tony got his father back. And now they got to deal with just a hammer, but they eventually got the company back from him after, like, him, losing it and like, because he's, being blackmailed, not realizing it's the Tinkerer who's manipulating things to make it seem like he's being blackmailed by any closest, like, seemingly compatriots by going after, like, Killer Strike and Unicorn and even Sasha, but it was Tinker. And he thanks to Sasha, or thanks to Tinker, I should say, he gets doused with his own zombie gas, which eventually the rest gets neutralized by Iron Man. So now it's like they got to give them the shield to eventually find a cure kind of situation. Because, like that's going to happen, whatever. But, let's say it did in like a, because I think there's like a tie-in comic to Armored Adventures that, I saw as a thing, but I haven't read it. So maybe there's something about that being cured. Um, but everything eventually comes to a head when, like, towards the end, whereas just like the Avengers movie, oh no, before we get to that, one of my favorite episodes out of the entire series is when, like, the introduction of, or I say cameo, supporting extra one-off episode of supporting character or slash enemy of Iron Man 2099, which is Tony's grandson, uh, Arnold Stark, which you can clearly, with his red colored hair, he obviously looks like Tony, but has red colored hair. Obviously, him and Tony and Pepper get together and eventually have children who end up having Arnold. Arnold has a super advanced Iron Man suit with a super advanced Extremis, which eventually Tony does get Extremis, which makes him like a technopath. But he comes back in time, i.e. Terminator style, and like to take out his own grandfather, because in the future he makes this in the future Tony makes this vortex virus or tech thing that's supposed to help the world, but just like Skynet take the machines and tech whatever take over and ruin his future, his present, their future. So he goes after uh, his own grandfather, and of course, like Black Widow, like I said, and Hawkeye make appearance, and they eventually get recruited to Shield, and they help trying to take down Arno, who has a super advanced, way more advanced armor than Tony is able to understand himself, because it doesn't exist yet. So he creates these little mini disc things, 3 of them, hopefully to like neutralize the suit for only a minute, because it's still super advanced. He only gets a minute to actually take him down. You get the small window, but eventually, because apparently, technically, Arnold succeeds by killing his own grandfather, which should have erased him immediately from the present. However, he's still around long enough for Hawkeye using one of his arrows to hit Arnold's suit, which turns out Arnold realized this is the birth of Vortex, and my grandfather invented it because it was me. I was the paradox here. It's kind of like Reverse Flash kind of situation / Terminator. So he had only one jump left to return back to his present. He used it to go further back in time before he ends up killing his own grandfather, and to stop himself, like, stop. It was us. We was the cause of the creation of the vortex. You gotta, like, stop it. I'm sorry, grandfather. So Tony decides, to trust it, and like destroys that final disc thing, which saves the future, but erases like Arnold from like the timeline that caused him to go into the past in the first place. All that is erased, is neutralized, and I guess it's like a more happier 2099 present day. I kind of wish we get to see 2099, because eventually I want to read Spider-Man 2099 and Doom 2099. There's a lot of 2099 books I want to read for the channel, because I, back in the 90s when it was created, it's supposed to be like a kind of like the Ultimate Universe. It was like a different universe entirely with different situations, but over time it was canon now that 2099 is the set future for 616 mainline universe. So that is from henceforth 2099 Marvel, that is the future of 616. I just want to mention that episode. That was my favorite. Also, like I said, you get to see Magneto going after Jean Grey, who under the guise of Annie Claremont, like a reference to Chris Claremont, who was one of the writers for X-Men, and the voice actors for her and Robert Kelly, who also is part of this episode called The X Factor, is the same voice actors who did these characters' voices in X-Men Evolution. So they're doing their voices again for Iron Man Armored Adventures. So I thought that was pretty cool. You get a cameo for Charles Xavier, but it was cool to see Magneto going up against Iron Man and War Machine. It's like they had to figure out loopholes in order to stop Magneto, because you going up against a guy who's controlled metal, the exact thing that you're surrounding yourself in. But another scientific fact, or at least a character fact about Magneto, don't know how canon this is, but he obviously control magnetism, but he controls the positive and the negative forces of magnetism, but not at the same time. He has to use one and then the other separately. So that's when Tony manages to work his tech and shields to counteract whatever polarity he's working off of. He counteracts that with this opposite polarity. I thought that was pretty nifty idea to deal with Magneto. Everything has a Achilles heel if you think hard enough. But then towards the end of this season, you get the race of lizard alien creatures, where Fin Fang Foom hails from the Markalon race of aliens, who created the Markalon rings for their leader, who eventually come knocking on the front door of Earth to get back his rings from Jin Khan, who got all 10 rings now and tries to self-proclaim ruler of Earth now. My mom said I'm destined to do great things. I want to take over and make the world better under my rule. Blah 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 blah. But as a result of gathering all the rings, made like a giant beacon for the Markalon people to come knocking on the door. The leader takes his rings from him, and now, kind of like the Avengers movie, except for Thor and Captain America, you got Romanoff, Hawkeye, Iron Man, War Machine, Rescue, Nick Fury, Black Widow, Hawkeye, yeah, like I said, and Black Panther, and Hulk, who makes his return, Grey Hulk down, because this whole thing with Thunderbolt Ross and his psycho ass trying to, seemingly kill the Hulk. They all, in Avenger style, just kind of like in the movies, start systematically taking down the mothership and stopping the leader of the Markalon race, which Jin Khan ends up helping, but he gets his rings back with different clarity, saying okay, man, I'm going about this the wrong way as far as forcing our rule, because he doesn't want to be like this leader, seemingly leader of these Markalon people. And you get the part one of this, you get to understand. No, before part one, it was Dragon Seed, where the guardian of the final ring was the one who gave all the rings to the ancestor of Jean, who he saw as a more virtuous person, and you wouldn't be able to control the rings unless you had the DNA of a Markalon, which he somehow, I guess, gave some of his blood and infused it in this guy who became the first Mandarin, who seemingly might be hinted at, might be Genghis Khan, maybe. But you call him a noble leader, but it's how noble is this guy historically wise? He doesn't seem that noble. The fact that he's conquering a lot of places, but anyway, he realizes his descendants wasn't noble enough to earn his rings, so he hid him away until one of them becomes worthy. This last Guardian sees the heart of Jean. It's like, you're not worthy. He reads the minds of like Tony and his companions. None of them are worthy, but Pepper, because she's got more of the noble heart to be worthy of wielding all these rings. But you don't see that, happen. But like I said, Jean still get all the rings, kills the last Guardian. But like I said, thanks to the Proto Avengers or whatever, they stopped this Armada. Uh, you know, there's a thing between Brody and Pepper. She's like, you get a kind of comedic line from Pepper's like, as she's fighting Jean. It's like, I can't believe I was into you. And I was like, I can't believe it either, because that it really like was unnecessary. But whatever. Uh, uh, Everybody eventually finds out. The whole world knows about their alter egos, so there's no secret identities no more. Uh, uh, Stark Enterprises is back in in the hands of the Starks, and there's a new day ahead for them. Seemingly, like it's gonna be like you because of all these references to like all these Marvel characters. You assume that eventually Iron Man will meet all these characters, and Nick Fury actually forms the Avengers after seeing all this come to play, because you get like the see like the little hints from him coming up with the idea of making like a group of superhero teams. Uh, but yeah, that was season 2 of Iron Man Armored Adventures. The next TV show I want to take care of, doing a review of, is the Iron Man anime. The season 1 of Iron Man anime from the series of other anime-inspired Marvel characters like Wolverine, X-Men, Blade. You get one with Iron Man, which I'll be doing in the following week or so. But anyway, let me know in the comments below. It's getting dark right now, and I'm getting kind of hungry. I want to order me some food and then wrap up this evening with Iron Man 2 and do a review for that as well tonight. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of Iron Man Armored Adventures series, any good and bad qualities that you care to divulge. And I will see you guys a little bit later for the wrap up of this evening's festivities with Iron Man 2 review.